So earlier this week on SE Scoops, you kind of broke the story that AEW and WBD had an agreement in principle. And kids, if you're listening to this, wrestling fans specifically, if you're listening to this, Google the term in principle, and I'm sure Uncle BJ is going to explain it to everybody. That does not mean they have a signed agreement. That does not mean that they have a deal locked into place already. It means it's in principle. But it looks like they're going to be staying with WBD for the foreseeable future, unless something significantly drastic happens.
Yes, they're really, really close, and it's pretty locked down. And my just to be clear on this, my sources aren't from WWE, okay?
Yes.
Which apparently it's turned into this whole thing where Brandon Thurston asked Tony Khan about my article, and then Tony went off about, because I guess people in WWE PR, probably Crystal Gentle and Nick Khan, from what I've been told, have been, and I wasn't told this by Brandon or anybody else. This is from other people that they've been trying to spread some disinformation or negativity about AEW's upcoming TV deal. This is old hat WWE TNA fans. You remember this stuff from the 2000s and the 2010s, but to get back to the real story, is they're very, very close to a deal, and it is a very, very good deal for AEW. I haven't talked to anybody at AEW about this. I've talked to people in the TV industry that are very familiar with a lot of this, and it's going to be a good deal for them. Now, I don't know when it becomes official. I don't know if they have anything set in a date for when they're going to sign. I don't know if it's been lawyered all the way through. I do know they have a deal in principle. And when I say principle, I don't mean the guy running your middle school. I mean, they have something they've kind of shook hands on and say, okay, those terms sound good. We'll work from there. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're an idiot listening to this online and you want to call me a pedophile over it or whatever the hell it is, go get a dictionary and spend the next 5 years of your life reading it. Because
I thought you were going to tell them to go get a dick.
Yeah, go get one of those too.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't want to be, I don't want to be like crazy over this, but it's like it's easy. It's deal in principle. And it's like, it doesn't mean anything about WWE. It doesn't mean anything. It just means they have a deal in principle. It's news, and it's a good thing.
It means they both sides have an idea of what looks right for them, right? And they're really close to putting pen to paper. But BJ, I do want to clear the air on this, because I had some people tweeting me like, "Hey, BJ's your friend. Did he say this?" And I said, "No, he didn't say this." But and Sean Ross Sapp never said that you said this either. But he did an article for Fightful, and he said that there are reports out there that a deal is imminent, but I can confirm that is not the case. BJ, you never said that a deal was imminent, correct?
No, I have never said that, because I don't know when it's going to get signed. I mean, they got the Olympics ahead. From what I know, Warner Brothers Discovery is a small office, and they still have the NBA thing they're trying to figure out. Obviously, the NBA rejected that offer today. That's probably going to go to court. That's a big thing for them to handle. And there's the Olympics coming up. David Zaslav's supposed to be out there. Sapp reported that, and so's Tony Khan. You also have football training camps that just started this week. You have the Ring of Honor pay-per-view coming up. There's a lot of things that could happen, that are happening right now, that could keep this from happening, right? A signing being imminent. I mean, it could go into September. But I've been told enough and sourced it enough to know that they're really, really close to a deal. It is in principle, and it's not signed. It is not official. It has not been notarized. It has not been stamped. It's nothing like that. They have a deal in principle. It's a very, very good deal. It's a deal, I believe, from what I've been told and what the people involved have been told and believe will happen. When this is all said and done, they will end up having content on Max, the streaming service. It also will, I guess Tony mentioned a little today that they've even discussed Ring of Honor with Warner Brothers Discovery, which if that's something that helps Warner, if that's something that ends up on Max or maybe True TV, is a huge boon to AEW. And this is all great news for the wrestling industry because this means your wrestlers are going to get paid more. They're going to be taken care of more. There's going to be more wrestlers coming. There's going to be more wrestling on TV. There's going to be more competition. It's not going to be a monopoly. And maybe you'll see other investors get involved in other companies. I mean, look just how well TNA's been over the last year. So that's what I got on this. And I've been given ballpark figure numbers. I'm not saying them because I don't want to go there because I don't have anything official in stone. I don't think they do either. I think they have a pretty close idea on what they've agreed upon. And I think that once this is official, people are going to be surprised at how well of a deal they got.
BJ, I want you to understand what you've just done. You have completely killed our YouTube numbers now because you said something positive about AEW. And that just doesn't play with the algorithm. It has to be all doom and gloom negative, or no one's going to watch our show. I'm sorry. That's just the rules. I don't make them.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, I don't know what to say. The thing is like, Meltzer's mentioned this a bit before, but it's like the TV industry views AEW as a huge success. The way wrestling fans view it, where you're on Twitter and you're dealing with bots and trolls and angry fans. And I mean, let's face it, even without bots and trolls, even in the 90s, 2000s on the internet, wrestling fans were a bunch of assholes. I mean, we were talking about how dumb wrestlers could be on Twitter. The wrestling fans, they find dumb and they keep digging below it. And I'm not saying that about everybody, but I'm saying there's people who like to be miserable, and they follow all sorts of culture. For some reason, wrestling fans have a lot of them. They like to be miserable. But I can tell you this TV industry views AEW as a big success. And people don't realize, they draw more than the average NHL regular season game. They draw more than the average MLB baseball game, where they're getting 300,000. I mean, that's Rampage numbers. You're talking about the big leagues, baseball, you're talking about NHL hockey. I mean, and the one thing I had somebody in the industry told me, it really stuck with me, was that it is almost impossible to create a top 5 show. And it's like every now and then you'll get lucky with a Yellowstone, which becomes like a huge hit, right? Which I hate that show. I'm more of a Justified guy. But anyway, but it's like it is hard. And let alone one that finishes number 1. Let alone one that beats most of the major sports in demos half the time. So this is a very successful TV venture. Now, could the booking be better? Could this be better? Could that be better? Sure. I mean, that's part of being a fan and discussing it and all that, and part of the internet era. But I mean, just strictly speaking about the deal and in the company, it's been an overwhelming success as far as TV people see it.
The problem is that we have so many people that can't leave the Attitude Era. It's guys like Mike and I's age, right? It's people that grew up in this WCW, one WWF, Monday Night War. One has to be better than the other. One has to be winning, one has to be losing, and the losing has to die. Right? It's very Highlander. It's very Highlander on the internet. So I mean, like, we can't just exist, and find me another startup sports league that's had this type of success, right? You can't say for the USFL or XFL. This is what
I can tell you this right now, talking to not TV executives, but people that work in that realm. To go back to find something that's as successful as a startup, you have to go back to Melrose Place, which was pretty much the first venture of Beverly Hills 90210 and that production company. And they were becoming like the number 1 show on cable, on network TV. That's where you're at with AEW and cable. If you're talking sports leagues, you got to go back to the AFL in the 1960s, which was, the competitor to the NFL, and was, they ended up merging in 1970. But it was a huge league at the time. That's like been the only successful secondary sports league. And in all that time, maybe the USFL had some bright spots here and there, but Donald Trump
I think
ultimately killed it.
I think UFC would kind of fit the bill there,
But
although they
I
didn't
UFC,
think
really get
that's
on the
another
cable
great.
until
That's
like
a
'05.
yes.
yeah, UFC didn't
Yes.
have anything there till like even
Well,
UFC the
UFC
sport.
was its own thing, though. UFC is a combat sport of its own, fixing
Yeah.
martial arts. It was in an octagon. It was not. Now, if it was, let's say, taking on boxing, like they were going to have their own boxing style and do something like that, then you could say that's a secondary company.
Oh,
But
okay.
UFC is
I see what
all of
you're comparing
itself.
it to. Okay.
I'm comparing it to having okay, there's a larger company and then there's a challenger brand or a
Yeah.
challenger company. As far as a challenger company or a startup, it's been very successful. UFC, I mean, I would, looking back at Ultimate Fighter, I think you could definitely make that claim, but they were much more of a pay-per-view show company. They weren't doing weekly television.
Right.
Yeah.
Ultimate Fire wasn't on. I mean, it had seasons, but it wasn't on every week.
It was a reality show.
Yeah, it was a reality show, and it was a great reality show. The first seasons is some of the best TV I saw in forever. But but it but it's been successful. Now, does that mean that the company doesn't have issues? No. I think Tony Khan would tell you there's things he would like to see done different. I think that a lot of the people there would like to see things done different. But at the same time, I watch WWE and I'm like, there's a lot of issues on there. You know, I mean, that's just it. It's like it's hard to find a wrestling company. Sometimes will hit that golden path for a year or two, where they're just in the zone. New Japan managed to do it for like 5 or 6 years, right? But most of the time, you're not going to get that. And I think right now, and I'll tell anybody this: if you've watched the third episode of Death of WCW, and you don't like any of the wrestling right now, you need to go see a psychologist.
Yeah.
You don't like wrestling, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, BJ, one thing that people are connecting the holdup on this AEW deal, the thing, and you brought it up a little bit, and I kind of want to circle back to it, is this deal between WBD and the NBA. So I guess Amazon struck a deal with the NBA for I think what $1.8 billion for their C package. Is that what I'm reading?
yes.
Yeah. So NBA accepted that, and then WBD matched it. But now NBA has come out and said, no, you didn't match it because from what I'm seeing, Amazon is more of a global company, so they feel like that's the better deal. So it looks like this whole thing's going to end up in court, right?
Yes. So this is pretty much how people saw it going. They would match Amazon, and the NBA would say, no, we're going with Amazon. And they gave several different reasons why TNT couldn't match. Because in the contract, if TNT matched, they get to keep the games. Now, the NBA is going to the NBA is arguing, no, they didn't match because one, it's a global brand. And the other part was that two, Amazon's paying all their money up front, whereas TNT Warner Brothers Discovery isn't. Some of it's going to be on a line of credit, which is not unusual to happen in the TV business. But that's the difference there. Now, how it works out is I think that TNT will get some kind of buyout. I think that's in their deal if they match, but they don't get it. So the NBA will have to pay them some money. I believe that's how the terms work. But people are asking, what's going. I mean, everybody knew ahead of time and has said this forever. And Dave Meltzer's bringing this chorus for a while, which was, even though this is really screwing with the wrestling companies, the NBA deal was going to get done first before there would be an AEW deal. And it was going to be hard for WWE at that same time. I mean, they were really wanting Amazon too. They ended up getting a really backloaded deal with Netflix. But they got a lot of what they wanted with that, which was global exposure and a lot of money. But it's this is just kind of how it was going to work out. Plus, I don't think people realize this. Turner's office right now is much different than it was back when AEW started. I mean, this would have been done. This kind of deal would have been done probably a couple months ago, when everything was quiet, and it would just been announced one day. I mean, they kind of did that on their first renewal, which was like 3 months into the birth of the company, which is something I've never seen, and is a huge accomplishment.